Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti, hoping you guys are having a good day. And above all else, that you are looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to WTF. Are they really that bad? We're going to be taking a look at 10 artists who released albums during their career. And I do believe that with the release of these albums, these artists pretty much entered the WTF phase of their career, some temporarily and some had a lot of difficulty with the release of these albums and regaining credibility, and others pretty much broke up after the release of these uh, specific albums. Now, I've split this across two parts. So, kicking off part one, coming in at number 10, we have Emerson, Lake and Palmer with Love Beach, released November 17th, 1978. This was the follow up to Works Volumes 1 and 2. Love Beach was recorded during the summer of 1978. Now, Emerson, Lake and Palmer at this point, with the release of Works Volumes 1 and 2 and the tour that followed, they pretty much lost money on that tour because they brought with them a full orchestra, and it was quite expensive to keep the orchestra on the road and pay them, and they weren't seeing a lot of revenue with the Works tour, world tour that it was. So during a meeting with Ahmet Ertegun, the president of Atlantic Records, excuse me, he encouraged ELP to go in a more commercial direction with their next release. Now, around this time, you got to understand there was yacht rock was in full swing with artists like Pablo Cruz, Christopher Cross, Orleans, with Still the One. Uh, you know, too many to name at this point. Player, Baby Come Back, bands like that. So ELP, um, you know, gave in to pressure. The single that was released from the album Love Beach was called All I Want Is You. Yeah, no. To hear Greg Lake singing romantic lyrics on one song, like All I Want Is You, and pretty much sang in another song that follows on the album of how much he wanted to, quote unquote, give it to her. Yeah, no. Even, front cover aside, seeing three men in their late 30s, at this point, mid to late 30s, standing on the beach at sunset with their shirts open to the navel. I don't need to see that. And even though the album Love Beach had the, side-long epic Officer and a Gentleman Suite clocking in at just over 20 minutes, nothing could really save this album. And the band would break up the following year. They would reform in the mid 80s. But yeah, this album is pretty bad. This did see ELP entering the WTF phase of their career. Now, coming in at number 9, we have Prince with Chaos and Disorder, released July 9th, 1996. Chaos and Disorder was the last album that Prince would release for Warner Brothers until 2014. At this point in time, Prince and Warner Brothers were at loggerheads. Prince felt that he was enslaved by his contract with Warner Brothers to the point where he would write the word slave on his cheek for concerts and press uh, junkets, etc. This album is Prince entering the WTF phase of his career with songs like Dinner with Dolores, um, which was one of the singles, the lead-off single from the album. Other singles from Chaos and Disorder were the same December. But even the song titles, like the title track, I Rock, Therefore I Am. Come on, give me a break. Uh, this was a follow-up to his, in my opinion, one of his best albums, The Gold Experience, released in September of 19, I was going to say 1975, 1995. Uh, the fact that he just recorded anything and just gave it to Warner Brothers to release. This, along with The Vault, Old Friends for Sale, was given to the record company, and finally the record company gave in and said, "Fine, you're off the roster. You're released from your contract." It is sad that Chaos and Disorder was the final release for Prince in the 90s on Warner Brothers. He started well with his career at Warner Brothers, and he ended it with a whimper with this album. It really was bad. Coming in at number 8, we have U2 with Pop, released March 3rd, 1997. Now, this album, Pop, received a lot of promotion from the record company, from Island Records. This was a follow-up to the band's release, Zooropa, in 1993. Now, in 1995, U2 would emerge as Passengers, a side project that they did with Brian Eno, releasing an album, Original Soundtracks 1, 14 or 15 songs. I do have the album. It's 14 tracks. Music that was for non-existent movies. Okay. They come back with Pop, release the lead off single Discotheque. Now, I like Discotheque. It's funky, it gets your ass moving, good melody, good guitar work, even though it's heavily treated guitars. Uh, this saw U2 going into more of a techno pop phase. Larry Mullins Jr. was not even around for most of the recording, to my understanding, because he had to go through surgery to correct an injury that he suffered, or a long-standing injury that he had. Pop went bust, in my opinion. This was U2 entering the WTF phase of their career. There are songs on here called Mofo. Mofo. Now, another way of saying motherfucker. Okay, it doesn't work. It songs like Miami, If God Would Send His Angels, they don't work. There's one track, Wake Up Dead Man, which ends the album, which was a leftover from the Achtung Baby um, sessions. Now, I do feel that it is sad that in a short arc of time, from 91 to 97, that U2 would go down this path. And yeah, this is U2 entering the WTF phase of their career. Coming in at number 7, ooh-wee, oh my God, okay, here we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you agree. There are certain artists that should not release disco albums. Ethel Merman. Yes, there is an Ethel Merman disco album. And Margaret. Yes, there is one. And this artist, Elton John with Victim of Love. Released in October of 1979. This was his follow-up to his A Single Man album in 1978. What the fuck? I'm sorry, I had to say it. What were you thinking? Uh, the album was produced by Pete Bellotti, who worked with Giorgio Moroder and Donna Summer during the 70s. The album starts off with an eight minute plus version of Johnny Be Good from Chuck Berry. Why? Why was this album necessary? Okay. This album is his lowest charting album behind Leather Jackets in the mid 80s. Now, for me, I bought this album on cassette. I listened to the first opening notes of Johnny Be Good. I never touched it again, ever. I bought this like as a chance. Oh, I'll buy something. Oh, Elton John. All right, interesting. There was nothing interesting about this album. It is bad. Okay. Now, to finish off part 1 of our WTF, Are They Really That Bad episode, we have Kiss with music from The Elder. Released November 16th, 1981. This is a follow-up album to their release Unmasked in 1980 and Dynasty in 1979. This was Kiss's attempt to do a concept album. And the concept was written by Gene Simmons. It was about, and this is going to be a very uh, broad description. It's about a young boy, a teenager, who was chosen by a group of elders to be the chosen one, to be the one to fight against evil and come out victorious. That's a very broad description. The album was produced by Bob Ezrin, who had come on board, and upon listening to the music, he thought that the best way to go about it was to release a concept album. Yeah, no, doesn't work. There are good rocking songs on the album. The Oath is one. The lead-off single that I remember, A World Without Heroes, co-written by Lou Reed. Beautiful ballad, beautiful emotional vocal delivered by Gene Simmons. This was Kiss floundering. They had a major hit with I Was Made for Loving You from Dynasty, which pretty much was a disco rock track, a disco track. Let's not even call it a rock track. They had pretty much alienated themselves from their fan base by that point. And with Unmasked, Unmasked was not a hit in America, it was a hit in Australia. They saw themselves touring more in Australia and stayed away from America on the touring circuit. They didn't even bother touring for music from the Elder. It didn't work. Aside from um, A World Without Heroes, and they did release a video for the track I, a promotional video. But overall, music from the Elder floundered. It didn't work. And there was supposed to be a movie about this. It never materialized because the album overall bombed. I do remember hearing that when Bob Ezrin took the album to for the playback for the execs at Polygram at the time in Casablanca, there was dead silence in the room when he finished the playback. There was nothing to be done. Even resequencing the album so that The Oath would be the first track on the album didn't work for the album at all. So yeah, this was Kiss entering their WTF phase of their career, and it took them until basically Look It Up in 1983 to get over that dreadful hump, let's call it. So there you have it, guys. Part one of WTF. Are they really that bad? Please put down in the comments below, down there, what you think of these choices and your own choices for albums of bands who basically entered the what the fuck phase of their career. There are no right or wrong answers, just opinions. All right. So please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content I've got coming up. I've got coming up part two of WTF. Are they really that bad? And yeah, more ideas, more shows coming up with Bill Schuster, Jim Bricker, and Ken Cheshire. And I will see you soon with more episodes. Bye for now.